What's going on, Next Gen fam? Welcome back to Mentor Momentum with Next Gen HQ. I am so excited for you to check out this week's episode with Craig Schleicher. He's the Senior VP of Innovation at City National Bank, and we talked about so much, from his insights on how to build an innovation environment and allowing you to have trust with the people in your ecosystem, to the importance of being able to ask questions, even if you feel like they're not the right questions to ask, at least getting that next step through question asking. So I think he shares so insightfully. So I can't wait for you to check out this episode of Mentor Momentum featuring Craig Schleicher. I kind of want to dive right in onto the startup mentorship side. You've been a startup mentor for a few years, and are, as you mentioned, kind of interfacing with not only innovation in the future of financial services, but working directly with fintech founders. And in all of that work, is there maybe one, two piece of advice that you tend to constantly give to kind of entrepreneurs starting their journey, or even a little bit far along in their journey in your space?
So I think for the entrepreneurs that are going through these startup mentorship programs, it's really important for them to understand what they want to get out of that mentorship. And I say that because there are just so many great programs, whether it's incubators and accelerators or other informal mentorship opportunities. It's hard to pick the right one. And some of them are really focused on an industry vertical. Some of them are really focused on B2B sales and helping you understand the corporate sales cycle. Others are more oriented towards helping get you exposure on the funding side and raising. And so it's really important to go into that with a mindset of knowing what you want to get out of mentorship, and also knowing the value you bring to the table of that mentor program, and being able to articulate the fact that by being in that program, you're going to do great things and take on more with your entrepreneurship venture, and reflect positively on that organization, the mentor organization, well, is really important. But if I think more broadly, just, thinking back to the advice I'd give to like a 20-year-old Craig, I think that probably most of the mistakes that I've made have just been from assuming that I knew what I wanted to do. And I got too locked into a career path being the right career path. And I listened to all those career advisors at universities that say the ABCs of accounting, banking, consulting are the only routes that make sense coming out of college. And there's just so much more, particularly today, as product management and design and all of these different disciplines are becoming so much more critical to the success of companies, at any stage. I think it's important to just take the time to discover and figure out what you really love doing and find a way to make that happen for yourself. So, take an online course in product management, learn about some topic you're not working on, and, really just figure out where you want to go. And it's so hard sometimes to be introspective because you're getting so much pressure, whether it's from investors or friends and family or other advisors, and they're telling you the metrics that you have to measure your success by. And usually those metrics are financial metrics or growth metrics. And, there's just so much more out there to celebrate. And when I look at some of the startups that I work with that I'm the most excited by, they're ones that have a social cause or a purpose or doing something bigger and more impactful. And, the ability to be successful and grow the company financially, but also make a meaningful difference. I mean, those are some of the coolest, most exciting opportunities. And, sometimes it doesn't translate to the immediate skyrocket growth in the early days, but having that greater purpose a lot of times is what lets you really find that product market fit that resonates in the long run and stand out from the crowd of, products are easy to replicate, but missions are a lot harder to replicate. So I think you're spot on of just finding that meaning is really important, I think.
Is there, maybe one, two life habits that you have that allow you to be your best, kind of on this same thread of being able to give that time to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that discipline of time blocking is huge, but it's one that I'm candidly not the best at, and I'm working on. So if I think about one that I've probably embraced the most that's been helpful, it's just been to consume as much content as I can and just stay intellectually curious. For me, I'm not a huge fan of most podcasts, other than this one's my new favorite, of course. So I tend to read more and check out Blinkist summaries and things like that. But, I have other friends where podcasts are their daily routine. For others, it's, going on Clubhouse or checking out other communities online. I think just find things that, even if they're not directly related to your job or to your startup, are something that might influence your ways of thinking, and find, whether it's a methodology like design thinking or behavioral economics or something that will shape your thought process, and just dig into that and learn more, and then pause and take some time to reflect on how you can take those principles and bring them back to the problems you're actually working on.
One thing we love to talk about here at NextGen is failure and mistakes. And, I think when you're a founder, you're always like, oh man, I can't make a mistake. I have too much riding on this. And we've learned over time that there's so much to be learned from those mistakes, from those failures. So is there a time that you remember, early in your career, even closer to now, that you've made a mistake and something you've learned from it so that our people can avoid that same trap?
The biggest mistake that I've made time and time again is being afraid to ask stupid questions. And, sometimes that's an ego thing of just not wanting to admit what you don't know. There's a time and a place where you've got to be careful not to ask stupid questions, with the investors in the room and things like that. But not asking that question can be really harmful for you. And a lot of the times when you think it's, you're afraid of looking stupid, you're not expected to know that. And so either right there in the moment, or find a safe audience afterwards, ask that question that you think is a stupid question. Just admitting you don't know something is the best way to get the help you're going to need to learn that, so that the next time you're asked that question or have that question come up, you don't go through that same process and keep not knowing. And the big thing I think also is just, don't just ask what the answer is to that stupid question, but ask how the person learned that answer, and generalize it so that you can learn how to avoid running into other situations like that, where, maybe there's just a blind spot or a gap in your knowledge that you need to address more systematically. Yep. And any question that you're going to ask that you think is a stupid question, everyone's had to answer that or figure that out at some point. And I think why we think of it as a stupid question is just because we know so much else about related topics that we feel it's silly we don't know that piece of it. But, instead of beating yourself up for the fact that you don't know that one thing, be proud of the fact that you know enough about every other topic related to that you feel embarrassed and think it's a stupid question. Like, the fact that you think it's a stupid question is actually a sign that you're becoming really knowledgeable on that topic. And it's not a stupid question. It's just the next step in building out that knowledge.
I want to dive a little bit into the innovation realm a little bit, and get your key thoughts. We have an awesome question submitted from one of our incredible community members, Hayden, who wants to know kind of what are your guiding principles around creating an innovative environment, and what type of leader do you need to be? What key players do you need to bring onto your team? What type of environment do you have to foster in order for that team to be able to rally around creating something that doesn't necessarily exist in the world right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this one in particular because working at a bank, banks aren't historically known as being the most innovative places. And so it's been a really fun journey to build that innovative culture at the bank. And we're a part of RBC, and their maturity and their innovation culture is really impressive to see, and is something I've learned a lot from personally. And the takeaways that I have after working on this for a couple of years are just the number one factor for innovation is trust. You have to have trust, up, down, across the organization. And you have to really create an environment where people understand that it's okay to fail as long as you're failing for the right reasons and you're learning. And what I mean by failing for the right reasons is you were intentionally experimenting. You had a hypothesis and you were trying to prove it or disprove it. And in this case, failure is actually successfully disproving your hypothesis. And so I think it's important to just frame those outcomes so that you understand that you're asking the right questions and you're getting answers to them and getting validated learning. I think to create that mindset, it's important, everything you're working on, just ask why we're doing it. Ask someone, how do you know that? Ask them why, what other options did you consider? And even if it feels like it's apparent what the right solution is, that act of just validating what other solutions were considered and why we didn't go down those paths is so powerful to just really make sure that we understand the strategy and the business context and everything that drove us to that decision. And last but not least, listen to your clients. Clients are really, the foundation of every company, and their success and their satisfaction is what we're driving towards. And so, we try to think about innovation not just in terms of how it improves our relationship with our clients or client satisfactions, but how does it actually help improve our clients' financial outcomes? And if you think about orienting everything that you're doing around how you make your client successful, their success and that partnership with them is what's going to make them a loyal customer, a loyal client that keeps coming back.
That was Mentor Momentum, sharing life and business lessons from incredible leaders. Looking for more momentum? Subscribe to our weekly momentum newsletter at nextgenhq.com and check out our other podcast, Momentum Audio, on any of your favorite podcast channels. Now that's momentum.